for it.
That's duplicate.
Well, that's duplicate, okay. Now I feel better.
Okay. Oh, you went in.
Go ahead.
You were the official go.
This is January 8th. This is the Street and Sanitation Committee. Present are City Attorney Paul Jensen, Finance Officer Shannon Phillips, Public Works Director Troy Kruger, Councilman Hockett in play, soon to be joined by Street Supervisor and Sanitation Supervisor Kelly Duffy. We have a lot to get through today, so go ahead and go.
All right. I'll start with sanitation. We had a meeting with Adam on Friday. What's that?
Sorry,
What?
I was gonna come and then
Oh, no problem.
Me too.
the Mid-Dakota Monster.
I think Shander sent out an email and the bullet points of that meeting, but I'll just go through them real quick. We discussed social media. So Adam had been doing all his communication with the finance office. So Kelly and I were aware of both posts that were being on Facebook. So I just reiterated to Adam that he needs to have that conversation with Kelly or myself before that we're posting anything on social media, just because we take the phone calls, and if we don't know what's on social media, we don't know what to tell people. So happened a couple times over the holiday season where there was some miscommunication on what he was doing and what he wasn't doing. So I just told him that we gotta have communication between Public Works and him, and then we will let the office know if something needs to be posted on social media or not. We also talked about the billing for the extra garbage, and finance office handed out, they had an example that they used with Heartland Waste. I believe that's what they're gonna go with. We let Travis know that, or excuse me, Adam, River Bottom Sanitation, that this extra billing, if it becomes in question, it's really not with the city of Winter, it's with him. So I recommended that he, take documented address, maybe a photograph, picture of the house and the picture of the container with the extra garbage, something to cover him on his side, because the city won't get involved in that, proving whether there was extra garbage or not. Holiday schedule. It was agreed between the city and River Bottom Sanitation that we would not work the holidays. So basically the 6 major holidays, we won't run garbage service on those days. We will observe those holidays as the city observes those. So the garbage on those weeks will just get put back one day. We will post it on our website. We'll let everybody know. One of the problems, when I initially talked to Adam about this, I said, so what's your protocol for working holidays? And he said, I usually leave it up to my employees. So I don't think that works for the city of Winter. That one year we work Christmas, maybe the next year we don't work Christmas. So we need consistency. So I think this is where we're gonna go, is we're not going to work the holidays, and we'll push our garbage service back one day, and we'll see how that goes.
Question.
Do you have a question?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead.
I had a comment from the public about the schedule, when it changes, exactly what you're talking about, the holidays. It's on social media. Is it on the radio also? If it's not, yeah, I know it's a contract, but could we consider having them put it on the radio? I believe it's free, but not everybody in the city looks at social media or has it, as we know.
Yes, we can definitely do that in the future, put something on the radio.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Go
I
ahead.
believe in the contract it states it's the responsibility of the contractor to put it anywhere other than our social media page. And last I knew, Adam was putting it on the radio.
Do you have a question, Jeremy?
I was just wondering, he gets to set his schedule unless it's in the contract. Do we have to amend that contract to spell out the city of Winter?
From what I
will
saw,
observe the
yeah,
holidays?
from what I saw on the bullet points that came out, no, I don't think we have to on this. It simply just requires some understanding between the parties, communication-wise and otherwise. I don't see anything there that has to be in the contract,
Okay.
so far.
I'm wondering if we dictate we're gonna observe holidays, he gets to set his own schedule. I think it says it in there.
He intends to send a letter to the city of Winter stating that he will observe certain holidays.
Yeah.
And that's how he plans to, that's his notification to the city clerk.
Yeah, I think that works, as long as he'll do that.
The communication and the service just becomes the big part, I think. Whatever we're gonna do, consistency is great,
Yeah,
but just
yeah.
communicate it.
We just need to be consistent from year to year and holiday to holiday. This last holiday season with the storm, it was just, it was a mess. We had bad weather, we had the holiday, and so he tried to go on Christmas
Do
Day.
you remember the stink I made last year?
But, I mean, I know he was out there because we were running snow routes and I passed him and he had an extra truck here and they were trying to do it on Christmas Day and people were, you know, a lot of people were gone. Other people just didn't get their garbage out because of the weather and the city plowing the streets. And so it was kind of a perfect storm to be a nightmare, and it was. I was still getting calls last week that the garbage service hadn't been around, and so they were going back. And the communication on what was going on was not good, so hopefully we fix that. The only other thing that we really brought up in that meeting was, I did have some recycling effort questions for Adam. And one of those basically was cardboard. The city of Winter has, you know, we've tried to be fair to basically it's been businesses that we've identified so far as our major contributors to cardboard. It does help us on our trailer. We're trying to keep that, sending that trailer to Puckwana to just twice a week. And by taking out some of that cardboard that's in our waste stream, we're seeing that it's helping. But on the other hand, so I asked Adam, just real briefly, you know, not a big discussion on it. They do a cardboard pickup in the Pier area and some of his other routes. So we just discussed that, you know, briefly about maybe that would be a big thing for the city of Winters to start setting out containers to collect this cardboard. I mean, Travis is doing a wonderful job with sanitation, but he's one, you know, they've only got a couple guys down there and they gotta be open for recycling and then they're bailing all this stuff. But he's spending quite a bit of time running around picking up cardboard. And so we're just watching, we're looking at it. I just wanted to pick Adam's brain a little bit and see what they're doing in other communities and kind of go forward from there. But it is getting to the point where it's starting to become a lot of time and effort for the sanitation department to get that, all that extra cardboard picked up, so. That's the only thing I have on sanitation, unless you have something to add.
I was just gonna come back to the question that the mayor had. It would seem to me, off the bullet points that I reviewed, I think just a letter confirming the various points and the items that were agreed to, I think that keeps us well within the context of what our contract requires, but it doesn't necessitate coming back and actually amending the contract. I think as long as there's a confirmation of what the agreement between the parties is, I think we'll be good to go.
We could spell it out a little more clearly. I think,
Sure.
you know, like we talked on the 6 major holidays,
Yeah,
you know, we could maybe put something in writing and have him sign it or something, you know.
we'll just list it, yeah,
But just so everybody's on the same.
right, yep. I think I'll get together with you and Chandra and Kelly, and in 10 minutes, you guys can make sure that I've got the details correct, and then I'll get a letter put together.
Okay, moving on. I see everybody's scattered their pile all about, so.
Tell me the number.
First one I got, the label on the bottom says City of Winter Street Classification. That map. So this is the map that you guys asked me to provide. I'm having a new one made.
I like your map better.
Well, it's the same map. Oh, you don't like the colors, or?
This is easier to read than this one.
I mean, I can, that's why it's here. I want you guys' input on it. If this is what, it was, we have to have a handout for people that ask, once this thing goes into effect. It was talked about that we would have a handout that we could make available to the public. So this is the handout that would be available to the public. And if you see the legend, it So your black with your hash marks in it is obviously your highways, so those are your internal, your main thoroughfares there. The pink, solid pink is would be your number one collector streets. So in the legend, there's a stop sign next to each one of those. So everything, including themselves, stop to those streets. Any questions on that? I mean,
Does Jake have the PDF of this? So ultimately, we don't have to necessarily have a handout. What the ordinance says is we're required to post it with American Legal and required to post it at the clerk of courts.
yeah, this is just a rough copy. And if these guys want changes to it, I'll make, once we get it finalized.
Yeah, if
So-
we've got the PDF, that'll work.
So then number two would be your number two collector streets. And they have a yield sign next to them, so any street that intersects those, the number two collector streets would yield to the yellows. And then everything after that is just there's no stop sign, there's no yield sign. And then you have your emergency route and your school zones.
And to come back to your point, Chandra, in addition to having the PDF to post here and at the clerk of courts or with our publication, we will also, and I can take care of this, take this and basically make a list. From the standpoint of enforceability in a court system, the picture won't work. The picture is a good reference, but the actual designation of exact corners for certain signs,
Which I have.
you have that already. Great, I'll get that from you. Perfect. Perfect.
You want to change?
I like the map.
Yeah, I'm having if this is what you guys can agree on, now my printer doesn't print it out near as pretty as it shows up on my emails, just because I don't have a very high-tech printer, so the colors aren't near as, don't stick out at you on this handout that I gave you, but on the actual, when I open it up in my email, coming from DGR.
So one of the things that I look at this, and it's not going to be visible for the public, collector one is pink, which is fine. The problem is school zone is the same color. Even though
is.
it's wider, it's the same color.
Yep.
And I struggle with that when I'm looking over on East 7th Street and around 3rd Street, where if it was orange or something just to differentiate from that pink,
So I think what,
because that's a 15-mile-an-hour zone and it needs to be laid out.
okay,
Blue would work really well. Be a good contrast.
That's the only thing. I think that cleans this
Yep.
up, and everything else is good. I really like the street classifications with the stop signs over on the side for arterial one, collector one.
Mhm.
The yield signs for the collector twos. It's self-explanatory, except when you're looking at the school zone. Just around the high school and over
What's
there on Third.
what's the horizontal blue lines on the collector one streets?
That's just dashes in the printer.
Oh, okay.
I think that there's no,
That was my take on it, yeah.
yeah, I'll have to do something kind of like I did with that map.
yeah, you
We'll have to
differentiate.
lay a color next to a color. And Jake can do that on his computer. He's got AutoCAD, he's got all the fancy engineering stuff, so he can do
Sure.
just about anything.
Sure.
But, or maybe adopt, like the emergency route is in a slash red. That would lay in nice beside, just like a slash blue for the school zones or something, or blue and pink, make the school zones pink. But I'll work on it, I'll send us some different options to make it stand out better. Anybody have any more comments on that?
I know it sounds silly, but
Okay, I have.
No,
Seventh
Good.
Street should be on the emergency
What street?
Seventh Street still classified, or is that not how you're gonna?
No.
Because if you come in from Clone, that was the way to get to the hospital, no?
I thought Seventh
You-
Street was listed as an emergency
I
route.
know. Maybe I did this.
I don't have the map, so I don't know what the map says, but I'm pretty sure in your ordinances it says.
There is signage on Seventh Street that says, you know, to direct you to the hospital. Coming from both ways, the east and the west.
I didn't remember that.
So Seventh Street is, I mean,
Should be, yeah.
Country Club, Washington, North County are emergency route.
You have US Highway 18, Second Street from South County Road to 7th Street, 316th Avenue from Winter Airport to US Highway 18, Lamro from 2nd to 12th, Main Street from 2nd to 7th, Washington from 2nd to 6th, 6th Street from Washington to Country Club.
As an emergency? These are arterial one routes that you're describing also.
Yeah.
So that's just how it's listed as emergency routes in our current ordinances.
The only emergency route we have is the Washington Street.
I was gonna say, it's the only one that actually has signage as an emergency route, isn't it?
Might be signage, but you do have it listed in your ordinance as such.
Oh, I know, I'm just talking about the signs right now, but,
Those are emergency snow routes.
yeah.
Those are the snow routes that we clean off first.
We have to redo that ordinance in its entirety anyhow, right? Now
We,
that
we will, yeah.
Do you want Seventh Street as the emergency route all the way across?
That's, the key distinction here is I'm afraid we might be crossing the meaning between an emergency route and emergency snow route.
The emergency routes we keep clean for the ambulance, correct?
Right.
The arterial one, we didn't this last snowstorm at all. The only thing that we kept clean was the emergency route, correct?
Yeah.
So the highway, the state takes care of. We have Washington Street up to Country Club. Do you
Country
want
Club
to
to Ninth and Ninth to the emergency room.
Do you want Seventh Street across to be one of those that we're blading in a storm just to keep it open? Emergency route?
Sure can.
No, I'm leaving it to you guys to tell us. I mean, how much more does that add to that route?
Help get you from one side of town to the other. That's a good street for that. That's the only thing I'd say. You know what I mean?
You have a north and south and an east-west.
Do it from South County to Highway 18.
Yep, on Seventh Street. Then I think that somewhat matches our previous ordinance and it lays out what we're going to, in a blizzard, keep open. And then from there, obviously, you guys pull the ambulance through. I know you did and do on the arterial routes when they need it.
Any more comments?
Do we still have the extra, there was an extra couple of stop signs down on First Street. Are they staying or not?
Absolutely.
There's two on Fifth that will come out.
See, I'm talking down on First Street. By, was it one at Polk?
No, it was on Lamro.
It was Lamro?
But see, according to this, a collector one route, which is the pink, which is Lamro, you have stop signs that lead into that. So that is part of it because Lamro goes down to First Street. That will stay there.
So there, the stop sign is on First Street, correct?
First and Lamro.
For the First Street
First Street
track?
stops to Lamb.
Correct.
Yes.
All right.
And then we currently have one down at, is it East Park, Gilly?
Yes.
East Park stops to.
East Park, that was the other
First
one I
Street
was
stops
wondering
to
about,
East
yeah.
Park.
Yeah,
That
That's
will
the way
come
it is
up.
see, that doesn't show up on this. So we'll want to make sure to add that.
Well, the ones on East Park would come out,
Well, they'll come out.
because East Park will not be a collector street.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, it's a collector two on this, but only.
But it doesn't go
No, it
across Second
stops at
Street.
the-
Only
Highway.
north or south of the Second Street, yeah. All right. I'm catching up. Monroe and First, is there a stop sign there? No. Okay.
Main and First.
Main and First, yeah.
Stop sign there.
There'll be a yield sign on Monroe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, I got a handout in front of you that's got all the printing on it. So, I'm getting ready to go to bids on stuff, so I'm working on this stuff. Got 2024 asphalt mill and overlay streets. So I've got the list of the streets that we're gonna do. I provided a map with you, for you. It says 2024 asphalt mill and overlay streets on it, and they're in red. Those are the streets that Kelly and I have determined we have to do something with them this year. They're falling apart at a rapid rate. I mean, I'll give you some of the, if you're looking at your map, Juniper Street is that L Street that's way over here in the tree streets. That's where we have that ditch project going on. And the curb is sliding into the ditch over there, and that street is just, it's falling apart. First Street, basically from East Park to the alleyway between Polk and Lamro. That street got some major damage on it last year. The curb is, the street's heaving up over there. The asphalt's just come apart, so that's on our list.
Are we
We've got-
getting any assistance on that?
Excuse me?
Are we getting any assistance on that street?
No, it was
Oh.
never a designated haul route or anything, and it didn't have anything to do with the highway project.
First Street?
Correct.
Huh. I thought we drove that street and looked at it.
Nope, the state would not give us that. That's all.
It sure saw a lot of increased traffic because of the highway project. Okay.
That was phase one is when that did. Here in phase 2B, or if you want to call it phase 3, we got good at enforcement of where people needed to be. That year one, we were not. It did take a pounding. I agree with you completely. That traffic down there shouldn't have been there. It should have been up on the highway.
And we did have that conversation with, it happened more, like Jody said, that phase one, where that was communicated with the contractors, they were not to be on that street. We made that call. We called the contractors multiple times, reiterated it with the state that we had to keep the heavy traffic off that. But at any rate, the streets come apart.
Oh, yeah.
Then we've got, on Third Street from East Park to Lamro, and then on Fifth Street, we've got from East Park to Lamro, and then Taft. There's a couple blocks of Taft in there that are, really coming apart. There's a really bad stretch from 8th Street. Ironically, it's just about at your mayor's driveway. But there was a construction project years ago that 8th Street got redone up to that point, and then from there to South County, it didn't get redone. So that's the portion that's in really tough shape. So it's basically just a couple hundred feet to the east of East Park down to South County, and that's probably one of the worst ones on the list. So those are the streets that really need attention with the mill and overlay process this year.
Question. On Sixth Street from Lamro to Taft? That's bad?
Yeah.
What's wrong with that? That's concrete, right?
There's just a small, most of the concrete on that portion are,
It didn't go clear to Taft?
no, it's east of Lamro.
Meh, somewhat west. That was Ray Beardsley lived right there.
There's-
We went west, but it
There's
didn't.
like a couple hundred feet there.
Okay, that's all. That was in my mind, but it didn't go very far.
No,
All right,
we actually did that last year. That's been resurfaced.
got you. Go ahead.
So, basically, we have about $600,000 to work, well, we have $600,000 to work with this year for mill and overlay. That's what we budgeted for. What I have on this sheet comes up to about $450,000. So, there are some other options that, and I've looked at, we've talked about, so if you go to your next map handout, you will have, you're looking at, there is the new trip in Plum Street out there in the Britain edition. There's another handout, a couple of them. Basically, if you're looking at this Plum Street improvements, so this got engineered back basically before we had DGR and myself. That street's 32 foot from inside a curb to inside a curb. And they did not align it with the existing Plum Street, which I've looked that up, and the existing Plum Street, it actually, I don't know why that got put in the way it got put in when it got put in, years and years ago, but it actually hugs our right-of-way to the east, almost right on the line. And I don't know why they did that when they did that back in the day, but they did. So the portion of Plum Street that would be in the new Britain edition actually lines up with the existing, the way the right-of-way is actually plotted. So we're about 10 foot off when we try and match those two streets up, a little more than that. So if you look at the handout here where Jake has the curve drawn in there going back like about 100 feet from where the project, and his recommendation is to take that curve out, take it back out to the north, the new curb that just got laid, and then slowly transition that over so that we can align that street back up with the existing Plum Street. Now, when we come down, you can see how he has it drawn in here. This is a recommendation by our, and this has got to be engineered. This is to connect those two streets. It's going to have to be GPSed. They're going to have to come down, slope that accordingly, tie into the existing Plum Street. So this is not a city project. This is a project that we would have to bid out. And estimated cost, engineers' estimated cost on that project would be about $200,000 to do that intersection and then tie it into Plum Street from the south and the north.
What's included in that? Are you talking just the regrade and the curb and gutter
Correct, and then the surfacing of the street.
and surfacing?
Yeah. So
Okay.
you're gonna tie into Spruce Street, obviously, so you're gonna go back a little ways into the Spruce Street intersection. And then the other thing that Jake and I discussed, I know we have a drainage issue with that area of town, and it likes to hop the curb right there, and then it floods out some residents to the west of that. So, but the engineers feel pretty confident, I agree with them. We were gonna put a storm sewer in there. We don't have much grade to work with. When you start at that intersection and then you go down to the ditch on Juniper Street, there's not a whole lot of grade there, so you don't have if you're gonna put any kind of pipe that's gonna carry water in there, you're not gonna have much cover over it to get it, to daylight out into that ditch. So I think we can accomplish to get the water going in the right direction with some good size, just some, not an actual, or a curb and gutter, but I can't, it's Monday morning.
Valley,
Valley gutter, thank you very much, Paul.
trying to help.
Like a 6-foot valley cutter that runs diagonally across that intersection, the Spruce and Plum intersection, just to get that water going in the right direction, and then we might have to put a little bit of a heightened curb on the west side of Plum Street, just to keep that water, to get that water moving to the south there and get it down to that ditch, but, so, that project right there, about $200,000 to do that intersection. Next handout I have for you in the maps. Oh, before I move on, if you're looking at and the map doesn't show it, but, so I'm kind of throwing out different projects that we have out there that have been talked about. Councilmen have asked about them, and so I just got prices on what it's gonna cost to do some of those projects. So if we were to do, we do have another home going up on Tripp Avenue out there in the Britton Addition. And it was asked last year multiple times why we haven't done anything with Britton Addition. The underground on the electrical side is done out there. Everything is done. So if you guys were to choose to do this intersection project, it can go forward. We're ready for it as far as the electrical side goes. There's going to be no water and sewer involved with this. It's just gonna be street work. Another, if we just did Tripp Avenue, from the existing Tripp Avenue to where Tripp Avenue ends, so basically where we have two new homes out there in Britton Addition, you're looking at about $60,000 to surface that street out there. 62,000 is what I have. That's an option. Moving along. Seventh Street. So, I don't have a map of Seventh Street, but what I'm gonna let you, it's been, Kelly and I have talked about it multiple times. Seventh Street, the piece of Seventh Street that I'm talking about here is from Highway 18 east. And runs beside the Lutheran Church over there. That piece of project was actually used in the year one highway project. And it's a bladder street. And there was some damage done to that bladder street. We fixed that, but the street is in tough shape. It's really coming apart. So, two options there, I think, in my opinion. I mean, there's multiple options, but Kelly's got the places that are coming apart filled in with just recycle. And it's good enough to get us through the winter. Our garbage trucks, the contracted trucks now are using that route pretty frequently, going back and forth to the recycle center. There's a little more traffic on it than there used to be, I guess. I don't know why it's coming apart so bad. But anyways,
maybe this has been talked about, I don't recall it before. Has there been, in recent years, any kind of a discussion with the county about a cooperative effort on 7th Street east of the highway? Which is it's the edge of city limits. And it's always been treated that the south side of that was the county's. That's why there's no curb on the south side.
right, it's half city, half county.
And so my question is, has there been any discussion with the county about doing a cooperative effort to either improve or maintain that street that you're aware of?
Not the moment.
Okay.
What is it past?
I was thinking it was township,
Is that a township road though, or is it a county?
I should check into that, but
I don't know. I don't know, it's probably not declared as either, but it should be a county road from the standpoint that it's a section line.
Because when you get past Jackson Street, that was basically just an improved gravel, or an improved minimum maintenance. That was never
Correct.
any kind of a county road. That was never, it was basically a grass trail 10 years ago.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
But
And so maybe from that standpoint, it may not even be designated, whether it's county or township.
So anyways, we could just do another double chip seal on it, or we could do like we did down here with our Hall Road and do a reclamation where we go down like 6-8 inches and we take that up, we pack it, we bring it back up, and there is some gutter on that road. So we do two different lays of 2 inches of asphalt at a time and make that a good sound asphalt street. And it's gonna, with us doing the dirt work like we did on the Hall Road, that's gonna be probably about $180,000 worth of material to do that project. Another option. Monroe Street's been talked about. So I have a handout here, Monroe Street improvements. I talked about this, I ran it past DGR, about just doing a 2-inch mill on the existing concrete and then putting asphalt in there. So after that conversation was had, I actually got some input from the public, and I knew we had a couple of areas there. I don't think it's, Jake reiterated it, he thinks the concrete's too far gone to just do a mill, but there's other issues on that street. In the first block, from First Street to the highway, we've got a storm sewer issue down on that end, we've got a really bad curb and gutter on First Street on the east side of the intersection, and it's really busted up, and it was never made, I guess, designed real good down there in that area. So the gutter, as you go east on First Street is gone, basically, to speak of. That needs some help right there. The rest of it is okay. From Second to Third Street, they had to do an emergency water remain placement, I believe, years ago before me. That happened over on the east side of that intersection, and that got filled in with asphalt years and years ago, and that's just coming apart. It's in bad shape. There's no sidewalk on that section either, to speak of. So that's kind of one of the things that we talked about. Sidewalk is, just talk about sidewalk just for a second here. I know we have a city ordinance that says it's up to the residents whether to put in a sidewalk or not. It's also up to the city whether to put in a sidewalk or not. When we don't provide sidewalks, we really shoot ourselves in the foot when it comes to any kind of grant opportunities or borrowing money, any kind of stuff. So that's something to think about in the future when we go forward with some of these projects. We really do need to be putting in a sidewalk, because it's just, if you don't, you're really hamstringing yourself when it comes to getting any kind of grant money or any kind of help money from the federal government or the state government. So no sidewalk on that piece of street. Also, we have, then from Third to Fourth, we have no water main in there, which there was never one in there. There's a, up on 4th Street intersection. This also happened, I think, in like 2017-ish, when they concreted over that intersection there. We don't know what's in that intersection. They just concreted over, they just redid the surface, but we think there's a valve in that intersection, and we know there's some cast iron fittings in that main, there's still some cast iron main in that intersection. When we did Monroe Street from 6th Sixth to Fourth. We didn't go into that portion, that intersection because that concrete wasn't that old. We did find old cast iron main that we tied onto, but we don't know what's in that intersection. So that intersection needs to be dug up and replaced because we have a dead end water main there. So,
Serious?
Um,
Serious?
yes,
That's that one?
there's a 90 right there, and there's a valve in there, and then we don't know if it's stubbed out one way or the other, so, I don't know why, back in 2017, why they didn't dig that up and just replace that water main before they concreted over, but they didn't. So we don't know what's under there, but we know it's cast, we know it's old cast, so it does need to be replaced. We also have storm sewer from.
It was
Fourth.
it was after 17. I was on the council when they did that. Brent Gill was the public works director. It wasn't in 17.
It was the summer of 18.
Yeah.
It was before that?
No, I was on the council. He was the mayor when that happened. Brent Gill was public works director.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was 18.
Yep.
Anyway, go ahead. Just wanted you to have your ears right.
So, there's also storm sewer from Forest to Third to the highway, and that storm sewer's been in there for as long as Monroe Street's been concrete, so that, and it needs to be updated. Jake feels that we would be better off to try and get the public access grant again. That grant application is due in June or July. So, his estimate on the street was getting pretty close to $1 million by the time we get it done. The improvements that we'd like to see done on it, there's not a lot of parking options right over here in front of the barber shop. So we'd like to, that would be one thing that we would look at doing would be to put more off-street parking, just like there is in front of the insurance center, right there in front of the barber shop, to give that building more areas to park. In front of the insurance center, there's a valley gutter that runs down there, and that valley gutter is so much lower than the curb, or than the sidewalk in front of the insurance center, that if you park like in the last 6 spaces towards Third Street, when you hop out of your vehicle, it's about a 3-foot drop. It's really inconsistent right there, so that needs to be fixed. And then, we've talked about improvements on that side, so we would want to put sidewalks in, ADA handicap ramps, and then we'd also like to do something like kind of an extension of Main Street, and then do some streetlights and make the lighting better on those 3 blocks. Just kind of, a lot of use by the CCI people parking. It gets walked. It's another area too. A lot of businesses is on that street with the city building and the building. So it's an expensive project to do it right. So that public access grant would be a good option for that street, and to fix it right. Some other things that we've been talking about, and we've talked about that, it's basically the same grant that we're using in all fields right now. And that's for there's another map in here. It's shared use path expansions. Well, let me back up. I have another handout in here that says street improvements planned projects. And that kind of gives you a list of the streets that we would maybe put on the shelf or whatever. The ones that are in pink, that would be your Monroe Street, and then there's another pink section up there by the hospital. We get a lot of, the hospital, the communication with the hospital has been the parking over there on the north side of the hospital. They park along 8th Street, and that there's not a lot of parking there. So the thought was to turn the boulevard into a directional parking. That would provide more parking in that area. It could be lit up a lot better with streetlights.
That was talked about a couple of years ago with the
Yeah.
hospital.
Hospital brought it up.
Yeah.
Yep. So they've asked if that conversation has been had again. So that would be one of those projects that would be, not a real expensive project, but, something that maybe not super high priority, but maybe some people think it's high priority. Lamro Street's on my list. Lamro's got some issues with curb and gutter. Obviously, the Plum Street deal is on there. East 7th Street's on there to do something with those. And then 7th Street sidewalk. Now, all the yellow you see there on this map, if you look at the next map, it's shared use path expansion for the city, and it's kind of phased out with the color legend, so the red being like year 1, purple being year 2, kind of phasing that out into different years. But I think what our biggest concern is as a street department, is the snow removal on 7th Street sidewalk areas when we're doing snow removal. And then to keep it clean during the winter, because everything that we blow up onto the hillside melts and then runs down to the sidewalk, and we have ice. So that's something that I'm gonna get DGR involved with and get us some price cost on that, and then look once again for some grant opportunities for that project to try and get that done my main concern is Highway 18 to South County. That is a sidewalk that's super hard for us to clean, super hard for us to keep clean once it's clean, and we have a lot of curb. The sidewalk's narrow, it's like 3 foot, we don't have any equipment that we can get on it with to keep it clean, and then once we get it cleaned, it's always icing over. So, I know this is a lot, but any questions? Like I said, the streets that Kelly and I have drove streets, and we can definitely throw a few more streets on there if that's all you want to do is mill them overlay. But I wanted to throw out the option this year because I know people are asking whether we're gonna make any, are we gonna do anything out of the written addition? Are we gonna do anything? Are we gonna do anything with that tie-in on Plum Street? Are we gonna do anything with these projects? So I just wanted to give you a cost estimate on these projects, where we're sitting with the streets that we really feel need to be done this year. We're also doing a chip seal. We're gonna do that community chip seal deal to get our streets chip sealed. That's a project that's headed up by Bros Engineering, and we'll give them our quantities, and then they'll go to other communities and they'll get their quantities, and the whole idea is to get a bigger project put together to keep the cost down for everybody. So we thought we'd give that project, he gave me his cost of what it cost him to do it last year. It was definitely cheaper than what we could have got it done.
What do we have in the budget for chip seal this year? 60?
I think it was 55.
50? 55?
50 or 55. Yeah.
That's not the 60, because we have 600 for mill and overlay, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Then we have 100,000 for curb and gutter. Comments?
Monroe Street, that's kind of my baby. That needs it bad, and it's high traffic, but grant, do we have a realistic chance of getting a grant for that, or a good grant, or how much would that pay if we would get a grant, or what's your thoughts on that?
We've tried twice. We've not gotten it twice, and I thought we had a really good shot at it over here in front of the PD. I think we would have equally as good a shot at it on Monroe Street, maybe more, because of the condition of the street. Jake feels, they've worked this project quite a few times.
But the concrete shot, like you said, we can't do that concrete mill and overlay it a quick
No.
fix.
No, he feels like you drive down that street and you look at that center joint, it's opened up like 4 or 5 inches.
It's bad.
So that's moisture that's getting down in there. So if you try and overlay that with, you have a good base. I think if you could mill that, put asphalt over it, and I think you would have a decent street but it doesn't take care of a lot of the other problems that we have on that street. The parking deal in front of the insurance center is always, they've been telling me about that ever since the day I sat in that desk. We definitely have a parking issue over here by Darrell Bachman's building. We don't have enough parking spots there. We don't have any sidewalks to speak of on this whole stretch. And we do have some storm sewers. If you're gonna, storm sewers getting pretty bad from Third to Second. They showed us that when they did the highway project. It's a metal tube, and it's pretty rusty.
It's not as visible as Main Street, but it probably gets about an equal amount of traffic, I bet.
I think it gets a lot of traffic.
Yeah, it's busy.
You're talking over the next however many years, 3 phases. Once you do this, you're gonna need to do Main Street eventually, probably the same thing. Redo that whole project, and then you're back over on the street to the east, which is Taft. Once we start, just plan on boom, 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 the downtown business sector, which is fine, needs to be done.
The other thing with this, from the highway to Fourth, is we do allow the oversized vehicles to be on that section of it, because it's a,
Sure, they come around.
Delivery.
Yeah,
it's a delivery, I mean, it's for the oversized vehicles to.
that's what I mean.
So it's gotta be built to highway grade specs, kind of, and
Well,
heavy.
you definitely need 4 inches of asphalt, not a 2-inch overlay like we do on the residential streets. It's gonna need a little bit, yeah, it's gonna have to be beefed up.
Monroe, Taft, and Maine, all coming.
Just Taft over here.
By the police station,
Oh, that's Taft over there.
that's Van Buren.
Madison?
Or
Yeah,
Madison,
Taft.
Madison, Monroe, and Maine.
Taft, because Taft's this way, right, somewhere.
It's down there by the school.
What do you?
Has he looked at the condition of this concrete? Is that a candidate just to mill and overlay on
Van Buren?
Van Buren?
It's in better shape than that,
That's what I was wondering.
I think.
I planned on redoing that. The radius over here on this side of Third and Monroe this summer, having that report, that's just busted it's all busted up. And then we have a fire hydrant sitting in there, and there's a piece of that that's just gravel, and so the weeds always grow up in there, it doesn't look attractive. But that radius right there is in really bad shape. Like I mentioned in Parks and Cemetery last Friday, some of this frontage of the building back here, the concrete's getting in pretty tough shape. The parking spaces aren't horrible. You could maybe do a mill on that with some asphalt, but once again, it's like, you'd be putting a Band-Aid on the problem, I think, you know?
That's what I'm asking.
Any comment on 7th Street or Trip Avenue? Any thoughts on that? I know other councilmen that have brought those up, that,
You'd have enough money in your budget to do the $450,000 overlay. And you said that Plum Street would be 150.
200.
the intersection.
200.
The whole intersection.
So there wouldn't be
tie-in.
enough to do both of them.
There's
This
some
budget
curb and gutter in
cycle.
there, though.
What's that?
There's curb and gutter in that project too, so they could use their curb and gutter for it.
That would be
Another 100,000
$200.
for curb and gutter? You said 100,000.
No, I have 100,000 in my budget for
Yeah,
curb and gutter.
okay.
But, so if you're asking quantity prices on the different projects, the intersection of Plum and Spruce, which would give you a little bit of, it would tie in the curb and gutter, It would redo the intersection.
It would fix that mess that we have going on,
It would be,
basically,
well, we'd still have to surface it.
yeah.
That, what you're talking about there is just curb and gutter work, some grading work, and the tie-in of the gutters. But we still have to surface it.
Which is another 62.
If you just do Trip Avenue,
How much to do Trip and then tie that back down in?
well, it'd be 62 just to do Trip.
Mhm.
And so if we came back down to Spruce. you'd
Another
probably
30?
About the same.
Another
amount.
200.
It's gonna be close to the same amount. Probably be about another $50,000 worth of hot mix. So if you finish that addition up out there, it'd
300,000.
be close to $300,000. You don't have the money to do that.
The Britain edition, if you finish that whole thing, or what are we talking about?
Yes.
Britain, and then this down here on
Yeah, Plum.
Plum. Yeah, because we have 450 here, 200. is-
300. We're 150 short.
Yeah. If we choose to do those, that's a supplemental budget, isn't it?
Oh,
Yeah, you can do it. You just have to pull from supplemental funds.
7th Street would be about $180,000 to do that stretch, to redo that.
180.
180.
I think that needs to be a joint venture. And maybe that can happen in the future.
Yeah, I don't think that one's gonna be this year, is it?
Right, I don't think they have the funds. I think you can take that off and we can start the discussions with our partner government, Tripp County, and see if that's next year, the year after. I think that's gotta be a half and half to be fair to the citizens.
And if the county, if that's the case, then, you know, I would recommend you go all the way to 317.
I agree.
Right,
Yeah.
if you're working together, if you can
Yeah.
get something worked out.
And I mean, we have the material with all of our millings to help, you know, build up a base to do something out there.
That gets heavy load road though, isn't
This is expensive stuff.
it? But, yeah.
So are you saying First Street is on your mill and grind overlay project?
Part of First Street, not all of First Street.
Right, from,
From East Park
mm-hmm,
to the alleyway between Polk and Lamb.
gotcha.
There's a transition in the street work right there.
Yeah,
And as you go west, it gets a lot longer.
yeah. But that is part of your bid packet.
That's part of your 450,000.
Okay.
Oh, that's
Sign going forward.
Trip.
Better than other public entities in this county.
Monroe at $1 million is a wait. As soon as we see our cash on hand, I'm willing to do it all.
At all.
If we get the grants,
Devising a plan.
you
Well-
got almost 2 million in cash.
I know
That Monroe, that it needs it,
I know they're
but
planning
we
on
can try and get a grant
that.
for that.
No, it's gotta, yeah, I agree, we gotta try
That,
to get
it's, I
some.
mean, it needs it bad.
Stuff that they're trying.
What
they're-
my thought is, and I think this is what you're thinking, Jody,
It goes from
is
44.
the 450,
That's
State's
the mill
It's
and
not
overlay,
holding up what- holding up what they-
and the 300.
So I know
Without a
they're
doubt,
throwing
we
out
need to finish
We got it, yeah.
Asphalt. in
What-
that.
I don't know if we're still
So that
recording,
We
it
are,
doesn't
and
matter.
I'm fine with that.
Um,
They need to
That
hear
might be a good
this.
tie into this
Do
project.
we have, correct, because I don't know, and this is a question for everybody at the table. Do we have a policy, an ordinance, or just an operating procedure, or is it just in my head? That we say, if the landowner puts in the curb and gutter, we put in the base course and the surfacing, is that correct?
Used to be.
We
Used to
don't
be.
have that anymore,
That was for new developments.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm kinda talking about Britain edition right now, that's,
We, since then, we've changed that to the.
We'll still
contractor
honor that, though.
responsible for everything.
pardon me.
Since that Britain edition, we've changed that to the contractor is now responsible
Oh.
for everything.
Yeah, now, but we're still on.
But under that one, you're exactly.
So
right.
we should, what I'm getting.
Honor.
Honor it and finish it,
Yep.
yeah. Because right now they're driving on millings, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. We need to find the money, in my opinion. We need to find the money and finish that and do this, that 300 and your 450.
So, and just for your knowledge, I have said a little leery about just having millings in those streets, because we don't want to lose that gutter out there. So that is one of the things that I asked, took Jake out there, took another one of his colleagues out there. And we looked at that, and they said that the way we have that, the millings packed in there and level up with the curve, it's in good shape. Just so you know. Just
Going forward,
for your
it's not an
information.
emergency then.
If we leave it another year, leave it another, you know, as long as we keep that base, or those millings packed in, level, we're, you know, the gutter should be, you know, obviously obviously it's gonna be at its best when we get asphalt streets in there, because then we can crack seal it, we can seal it up, it's done deal, but
Yeah, I hear you and I appreciate that. I just think we need to finish it.
I was worried about the same thing.
No.
We do, you know, we don't wanna make something that's good, let it deteriorate.
No, that's right.
I mean, I'm really easy to get along with now that Ninth Street's done.
Thank you.
Now all I hear is, when are we gonna chip seal those streets, when we quit slipping the
They're
slide?
slick. They're slick.
Well, this ain't Burger King.
I'm good.